Okay, so we have a good group here already, so perhaps let's just start. Welcome and thanks so much for being here today. Just to start with some introductions as well. So I'm Dr. Gedert Ligite, and I'm a senior lecturer in the Transdisciplinary School at the University of Technology, Sydney. And I'll be facilitating today's session on behalf of ITD Alliance Oceania Regional Network. So I can see quite a few of you here are regular participants and contributors to this network as well. So you're probably very familiar with what it is, but I just would like to highlight the importance of ITD Alliance in actually supporting and creating spaces like these for us to connect and network and to get to know each other. And just flagging as well that we would love for more people to join the ITD network and ITD Alliance. And there are several ways you can do that. You can simply subscribe to the mailing list, then you will get all the information and updates from the network. Or you could also become a member, which means registering and contributing a small financial contribution to basically keep the network and alliance afloat. And then you get all the additional benefits as well of being part of the community and having your name listed. And you can also even convince your own institution and center or university to actually become a member. So as an organizational member, you get a whole lot of more benefits as well. And Gabriel Bama is actually the ITD Alliance president. And I think, yeah, we're all very keen to support this important work. And yeah, register, become a member, or sign up to the newsletter, or convince others to do that if you are already a member. So that's just a bit of a plug in terms of practicalities. But before we get started, I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge that we're all joining from all the different places across Oceania. And given today's topic as well, I think it would be just really important to acknowledge the Indigenous custodians of knowledges and lands and country where we're coming from. So I'm dialing in from Gadigal and Bidjigal land in Maroubra today. But if you would like to share where you're dialing in from, you're welcome to post that in the Zoom chat as well as a way to connect with the topics and themes that we will be exploring today. And today's session, as you already know, is called Talanoa and Community Engagement Partnerships, Indigeneity and Science Lessons from the Pacific. So we are extremely privileged to actually be able to have these amazing speakers today, and really importantly as well to have the Pacific perspective actually featured in a very central way in today's session. It is a regional network, and we know that we connect really quite a lot, I guess, in Australia and New Zealand, but we want to do more work with the Pacific and with other nations in the region. So I'm really pleased that we're able to have you, Adi, Vasu, and Leo. So I will not formally introduce you. I expect that that you probably will do a much better job of it. But the opportunity came through actually one of the um, ITD Alliance Regional Network organizing group members, Beth Fulton, and with her connections in CSIRO. And she mentioned that she knew of Adebaso and Leo, who have done some incredible work in the Pacific. And she felt that it would be actually incredibly useful to hear from you about the ways you work together, about the ways you drew on each other's knowledge and experience, but also how you built a long-term connection and relationship that actually delivered benefits for the community as well. So without, I guess, spending too much time talking about it, I would just like to hand it over to you, Adivasu and Leo, to maybe introduce yourselves, and then we'll take it from there. Perhaps Adivasu, you go first.
Bulavinaka. My name is Vasulevu Merewalesi Levu, a Fijian iTaukei woman from Tawake village in Vanuatu, Fiji. Right now I'm based in Lambasa, where I live and work. I also in Vanuatu Island. As an indigenous woman, I also have indigenous identity. My tree is noko noko. My fish or animal is my fish is a parrotfish, or the ulavi in my language, and my animal or bird is a bird called kula, and smaller version of the parrot bird. Thank you. That is important for us, that we ground ourselves as we live in the same environment. My work, I'm a practitioner working in peace building. Have had the experience for past 20 years working in Fiji, in the Pacific and Oceania. Way back in the 2000, with a group of practitioners, we and academia, we founded one of the peace building organizations in Fiji called the Pacific Center for Peace Building. And we further on in 2014, we also, some of us, because of the broad approach of peace building, of the work of peace building, and our context, we transition out of the Pacific Center for Peace Building, though the Pacific Center for Peace Building is still in operation today. A few of us transitioned out and established another peace building organization, the Transcend Oceania, in 2014. That was just a little before I met Leo, Dr. Leo, and yes, in 2017, as part of my background, I became the executive director of Transcend Oceania until the 2025, and I'm currently in last year, coming into this year, as a co-founder of the organization, still standing with the organization to support and to support its upcoming leadership, and seeing how important to maintain and to sustain this work in Fiji and in the Pacific region, to keeping the peace building engagement consistent, that we are instrumental in leading and advancing the work of just peace, nonviolence, and community-led transformative development at all levels. So at the same time, embracing indigenous traditional knowledge and approaches in mediating conflicts at our core, conflict resolution and peace building, that further defines the many or the numerous streams and dimensions and aspects to take into account where conflict and building peace is involved. So yes, maybe I'll give this time for Dr. Leo to introduce himself.
Thanks so much. So over to you, Leo.
Okay, thank you. So it seems that, am I sharing the right screen?
We can see beautiful pictures of
Yeah.
from Fiji, and we also see the ribbon at the bottom of the screen with all the other slides. But it looks quite good.
Showing the different level of engagements at communities in Fiji and also at the same time across the region.
Okay, so let me see if I'm going to, must be this one here.
Perfect. This is
that's better. Okay, thank you. Yes, I don't know if if you were able to also read the disclaimer. So I'll be showing some of the photos may have deceased people. So just want to want to make this statement because it may have caused some sensitivities to Aboriginal Australia's Torres Strait Islanders and also across the Pacific. So if you want me, I'll just pause before showing some of the pictures if you decide not to see them, but they are important for the context of what we'll be presenting here. So thanks, Vasu, for the introduction. Just going to talk a little bit about myself. So we decided to put some of the photos that we still have some dark hair before we met, I think. And I'm a marine scientist. I'm Brazilian. I came to Australia, was a pure biophysical scientist there, like doing surveys on coral reefs and spend a lot of time in the field. And then I decided to come to Australia in 2004 to do my PhD because I wanted to do a little bit more than just saying that, detecting changes and trying to attribute changes normally to humans, and then what to do about that information. And I came to Australia and I did my PhD on ecological economics. And I worked in Timor-Leste, that's the center photo there. That's when I started working closer with communities around options about coastal management, reef management. And after that, I joined CSIRO and I had the opportunity to work in several projects, just to highlight a couple that we worked with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. So I worked for a few years in Kakadu National Park, looking into impacts of climate change on cultural and biodiversity values. And I've been working in the Torres Strait on fisheries and on aquaculture projects, on community-led initiatives, Indigenous-led and co-design projects that merges science with community aspirations. And also worked in the blue economy CRC for a couple of years as well. And and I've been at CSIRO since 2008.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Oh, so yeah, how did you meet?
I start to follow a little bit the prompts. So Vasu, do you wanna make a start?
Okay. Yes, we met in 2016 through a common friend, Rebecca Spence, Professor Rebecca Spence, when Leo was seeking to engage a local while working in communities in Fiji. And she connected us. We met at a time when Dr. Leo was teaching at the University of the South Pacific in Fiji. I remember you to work together with Dr. Leo and CSIRO was the question that Leo asked me during these early stages. He asked, how is peace building relevant with the work of science and marine research? And how could we work together with communities in Fiji? I think there was a very important question. And I responded from the perspective of peace building and as a peace builder, wherever what I mentioned at that time to Dr. Leo, and I'm not sure if he remembered, wherever for peace builders or for peace building, where potential conflicts exist, peace building is relevant. And when it comes to research and marine science, the focus may be more on resource-based conflicts and conflict preventions and power relations. So these things weave in together closely. So that kind of opened the way and build more Talanoa for us to how we could engage together in communities in Fiji, and most especially that for us as indigenous people in indigeneity, I always find it hard to say the word. There are cultural protocols to take into account while engaging. And in our experiences as peace builders, sometimes this is overlooked, and that can easily be a potential conflict on the ground. Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Vasu. So just as a background, so I've been working at CSIRO since 2008, and between 2015 and 17, I took 2 years off from CSIRO and probably did one of my best life moves. Like I moved to Fiji with my family, and we spent 2 years there. And that's when I had the opportunity to meet Andy Vasu through our common friend, Rebecca. So in that first meeting, so these photos there are in our first day that we met. So the focus wasn't on me, like they had like other things to talk about with the organization on peace building and strategies. And then we, of course, met. And then we had the chance to, briefly talk because I was at the University of the South Pacific, USP. I was about to start a project to work with a community that was just about 20 minutes from the university. So it was actually based on a very long-term and long-lasting relationship, like engagement between that person on the right, on the bottom photo, Balawa, and Professor Randy Taman, that some of you might know from his work in the Pacific. And I was introduced to Balawa because there are some issues. So he was the spokesperson for the village, and there was a special request on looking into impacts of sediments on the Ngoligoli, on the traditional fishing grounds. And so he was asking how could we look into that issue. So with the university, we had access to science infrastructure, and we're able to gather a group of students. So they are all there, like the initial group that we started working with. So there was actually no one from Fiji in that group. So we had people, postgrad students from Vanuatu, Kiribati, Solomon Islands, PNG, Papua New Guinea. And we started together with another lecturer there that was looking into microplastics to see like how we could support and how we could start that project. So it involved us engaging, going back then to the community after that initial contact, and talking about the things that we couldn't do, that we could also look into other things. And we set up that initial study there that ended up being one of the first, I think probably the first study on microplastics that Dr. Martha was leading. And that was the right timing as well when I met Andy Vasu, that, talking about that project, because I knew there was much more that we could do if we would engage and follow the protocols and other ways of engaging science into day-to-day needs and activities from the communities there. So Vasu, I think the other thing that we like, the way that I think we structured this talk is also what has made this engagement work so well. I think we looked at that, and Vasu and I, on how that it was about our engagement, but also the engagement with the communities that we work with. Do you want to talk first, Vasu?
Yes,
from your perspective?
uh, how this has worked so well, worked well was from my understanding as an indigenous person, and also one from these communities of Fiji, that our people would commit to the engagement if the visitors and people who are coming in for external activities uh, enter in the proper cultural protocol. And that was one thing I felt that was important to engage in the community entry, seek their consent and approval. Then when they are ready, when the time is good also for them, and that is when we enter. And before we enter, we orientate and inform everyone of the proper way of engaging, aligning with the traditional and cultural ways of doing in a Fijian or in any community. And that is what we did when we initially went to communities. And we find also that when this happens, the leaders stand with us to call on their people that they must engage, because this is also about us. So once they understand this, and they receive us, they take the lead, and also make our work more
I think he's, sorry, make your work more.
Your
make our
post?
work more effective. Sorry, I didn't know that you didn't hear that part. Uh, yeah, and we started when with the engagement way back in 2017, or somewhere around there, 2016, 17, with the mapping socio-ecological coral reefs in Fiji, in the communities that Leo had earlier shown in Vitulevu, and then in Vanuatu with the Pacific Blue Carbon and Ecosystems program. Moving on, that was another 3 years program. And then currently, or almost closing, we've had another project that started in 2023, that is climate security and fish adaptation in Fiji, Torres Strait, and Timor-Leste. So, yeah, that is just a brief history of when we engaged from 2016 to now.
Yeah, thanks, Fazul. And I think from our science perspective too, is what that made that engagement and following the protocol. So what we had, for example, in the photo before, like engaging with the leadership, what Anivazu was saying, was very important, and considering the time and what they need uh, is also quite important. So it's not about us pushing because we have a set agenda and our funding body requests, a report to be done at a particular day. We have that pressure too, but that needs to be accommodated within the agenda, because when you work with communities, that's the other thing I learned there. Like, they often have a whole calendar with activities planned for the whole year, and they need to make sure that they will have time to accommodate what we are proposing to do. And listening to these things, and we need to be flexible. We have been, uh, doing things as we learn that things need to be done. For example, in this initial photo, like on the right, we have all the leadership for a whole region, like in Tawaki Undu Point, in Vanuatu, and we had the spokesperson, we had the chief, and they wanted us to go around each village to make sure that people internet connection or phone coverage is very weak as well, to make sure that all the villagers knew what was happening, and also that you're invited to come to the engagement too. The other thing that is also very important that Andivaso always makes sure that I answer the right questions is that how that activity is meaningful for the community. It's not only about us taking the information or data, it's how that information or the data that we analyze is going to be useful for the communities. It's just like asking the right questions. So normally Andivaso asks me like, how does that fit in? And if I cannot articulate, that means that it's not necessary, because I cannot explain, like in plain language, why that is important for them. Then we just sit down together, say where the change, or okay, just that's probably not relevant for them. And then when we engage, and that entry point, I think it's very important as well. I think Andivaso is going to talk a little bit more about that. But when you have that first initial contact, to make sure that we explain what we are proposing to do, or if there is any request from the community, how that fits in, and what are the other things that we could do together to make sure that we are doing the work that is going to be relevant to them. And that involves, for example, in this photo there, like we started in Avacabo with sediment plastics. We ended up, that was a request from the spokesperson from a particular group within the community, because Andivaso knows how to navigate through the community. She understands the structure. She also engaged the women's group. And then there was a whole new project starting. Do you want to talk about that, Vasuli?
Yeah, just to add on to that, because the issue they had brought in was of plastics and waste coming across the bay from Suva City, and they had no always have a problem with this in their coast, along their coastline. So the women took it on from right from the beginning. The women was actively engaging, and they took it to their women's group, and in their women's group they find ways and means to recycle or reuse plastic, turning up stick into excuse me, other things.
Amazing. I just wonder if, in the interest of leaving some time for the audience to also ask questions and to engage in conversation, would you be able to perhaps summarize what are the key takeaways or lessons or advice that you have to share in terms of building these sort of rich relationships and collaborations?
One thing with this approach, in the perspective of engaging both from the perspective of peace builders and indigeneity, we have witnessed responses from the communities and issues of conflict related to resources and from the lack of clear consultations and accountability from external users and activity entries into local communities. So the opportunity to engage and collaborate with scientists, such as in this project with Dr. Leo and CSI, space for meaningful dialogue. And the indigenous the uses of the resources. They have information that is qualitative references, and which is in their blueprint of indigeneity, the volume of knowledge and the experiences of living underground and using the resources. And with the approach taken, it also feed them with information that they need to know about what's happening, most especially not only in their experience, but changes are happening all the time. And there is climate change. And with the scientists engaging directly with them as well in this manner, I think I find it that it was very helpful and a big lessons learned, not only for me, but also for the communities that we engage with. Within the approach, we reaffirmed, reaffirming an inclusion approach, um, which is critical and unavoidable, I might say, with regards to power relations and engaging in their governance. As we enter the communities, they engage with us by aligning with their local governance. And we as well must align with that and understand the different channels and protocols that we may need to take into account as we enter communities. And this was some of the very important learnings. We see that when we engage in their right approach for them, they also give their full commitment. Their leader take on the leading role to inform them that, hey, this is important for us. We need to listen very carefully. We have our information, and like the chief in Tawaki, he said, information is power. What do we do with this information? Is it relevant for us? So he was always asking this question throughout the engagement with the Pacific Blue Carbon. And when we are leaving the community, we don't just pack our bags and leave. We again follow the protocols of, for example, in Fiji, iTaukei approach. We enter with the protocol of Vasulevu, and we leave with the protocol of Itatau, where we presenting that, informing that we are leaving. We are not taking any raw materials or anything. We are leaving with the information we've gathered. We'll come back and present it to you before we share it to the world. And that shows that we are committed to maybe return in another day. We opening the, seeking also their consent that we may come back again. And they also put in their request that they want to see the information before it is shared. Yeah, those were
Beautiful
some
reflections, and that reciprocity, and really going into collaboration on communities' terms and seeking appropriate entry into community. I think these are all really important. People are commenting also in the chat that that sense of empowering communities and actually really listening and including those voices. It's really exceptional work. I wonder, Leo, if you could have 1 minute reflections, and then maybe we'll open the floor to questions.
Yeah, I was just like reemphasize. Yeah, the consent is very important. Like we all follow, working with community, like research ethics protocols and all that. But what it really means in terms of working with the communities is that whatever you are taking, we need to come back first and ask them to make sure that that's what they want us to communicate externally, internally. And what Anivaso talked about, the Vasulevu, the entry, and the iTaukei, the exit, is also very important from us, because a lot of the times people go collect data from the sea, from the forest, from the community, and then off they go, they publish, they never see the results. But having that closure, it doesn't mean that the engagement stops. It means that for that particular purpose that we presented before, that we said we're going to do, we are closing. And Anivaso says something like, otherwise it hangs. We are not closing. It doesn't have a closure. It doesn't mean that we are not engaging. We can re-engage, because based on what we present back, they might want to do something else, or they may not. So it's also a relationship on reciprocity. It's not about us trying to fill in like a need that doesn't exist. It's about us working together, what they need, and how we can contribute and work together to deliver on that need. I think there are lots of other things we can talk about, but and I think just for 30 seconds, if I may, like the other thing that we're also doing a lot with, like in these projects, like we started, Anivaso and I working together in 2015 or 16, and now like we develop several works that we work together. We also work on separate projects as well, but we are always trying to develop and strengthen that network of collaboration, because together I think we can learn from each other. So we had, for example, Anivaso going to Timor-Leste as part of this other project, and also like Timorese coming to Fiji to share like what they're facing with climate change, what people are doing to adapt. And it's already like making a difference. Like some people or some communities like start taking things on their own, like to solve particular issues around water security based on what they learn, and vice versa. So we are more and more engaging with people with knowledges, Western science, traditional science, and bringing that information and sharing together. So I just leave it there, and we
thank you
can
so much.
talk more.
Lots of food for thought, and I'm sure the audience will have a lot of questions. I just wonder if you could stop screen sharing so we can see each other. And I just would like to invite anyone who has questions to just jump in. So I saw Mark, sounds like you're doing some work with New Zealand communities, Maori communities.
Oh, kia ora. Kia ora koutou, ko makawi hau, no ngaruhine. So yeah, I'm working in multi-dimensional projects. Often with Maori communities, sometimes even family, around different things to do with climate change and environmental projects, and working with the arts as well, and amongst other things. So yeah, thank you for your session. I think it's really inspiring to hear your work, Addie, if I pronounced your name correctly, and
Yes.
and is it I can't is it what's sorry I
Leo.
missed Leo. Thank you, Leo. Yeah, kia ora. So my question is around thinking of transdisciplinary research. I mean, it's something we're into obviously here as well, and how I was in a conversation with someone from a European project, and they were talking about commonings of knowledge. Um, and I actually have a problem with that in our context because we talk about Indigenous data sovereignty as being fundamental. Um, and how do you navigate that in terms of the material that's made by your peoples, Addie, and the kind of Western institutional context of research? Who owns it and how much do you share? How much, where's the control of it all? And I'd love to hear more about that. It's something we're always in conversation with around here. So yeah, we often have a model of where it's non-Indigenous, working with Indigenous, that Indigenous folks over here own and control all the data and all the work. But anyway, I'd love to hear more. Thank you. Hope that makes sense.
Naka, just speaking from our context in Fiji, for iTaukei Indigenous Fijian, we are governed with the Vanua Center, we call it, centered in the Vanua or Vanua-led approach. The Vanua concept means that the people, the land, the ocean, and the environment are in unity. Really separate ourselves too much, and the information as well is the same or similar. So with it's I think aligning with your question is more about the consultation that I mentioned earlier. As long as there is a proper channel of communication. For example, I mentioned to Leo once during the time we were doing this community engagement. There were also research boats going to the outer islands and doing samples in the waters. And I asked how did you enter? They said, no, we don't have to go to the community, to the village, but we take. I said that it would be more productive and more meaningful if you enter the community and do the whole protocol because you will also not only get only the consent, but also there is information. There are information with the indigenous people because they live and they use the resources they own. The resources that, like in Fiji, there are some level of ocean that is owned by, it's called the Ingolingoli, that's owned by the indigenous people, the Matangali, and there is outside the reef for the government. And there are some boundaries. But if we come in and enter, then we'll find that what we take back will be more than what we get when we just try to do it in other ways. And normally they appreciate because they also want to understand where you're coming from and how we can both benefit in this. And for our context in Fiji, once the governance go from the ground to the district for the villages, the clans, the villages, they are the landowners, and then it goes up to the district and the province. When the government enters the province, they must consult with the indigenous owners. They must consult with our leaders about other things, developments, and other activities beyond the province. So, like I said, consultations is always welcome, and there are some some considerations to be given seeking the approval of the people on the ground. Yes.
Thanks so much. And what does it look like from the Western science perspective, the institutional requirements? How do you navigate those, Leo?
Yeah, some of you are aware, like with the research ethics and working with communities, we have certain protocols and policies in Australia that we need to follow to address these things. So Cyril, like we always looking into indigenous cultural intellectual properties. So making sure that we address like those things like research ethics. The main challenge is that you go to the community then, or to communities in Australia, in Fiji, elsewhere, and then you talk, big words like that. Indigenous cultural intellectual property, what does it really mean? So that's the importance of us, for example, when you talk about these things with Andy Vasu, or like coming up with big words just because it's a tick box, it's not really the way that we should do. So basically taking that information and making sure that people understand what it means, like that everything that they own, like it belongs to them, like we don't own anything, like we're going to request their consent to use anything. We are going to advise what we'll be using. We'll be presenting the data before. So basically making sure that the message is clear to everyone that is involved. So it's about that consistency in how we engage and how we respect the knowledge, the contribution that people are doing to the project, like the science contribution to that, and then we put everything together, and then talking about how that information can be shared, and that can be shared with more detail within the community, and making sure that we understand, like the scientists, that what can be told to outsiders, what we can't tell anyone about this because of our privacy and agreement. So everything is agreed beforehand. And if there is anything new, we sit down and then we talk and we explain what these new things are.
Mm.
And
Thank- Oh,
just
yes.
to add on, and in that consultation that Dr. Leo is saying is also you may have a more opportunity in getting accurate information based on the history of how they have lived there, and they have that experiences. They have those experiences and their stories, and also in acknowledging that and seeking their consent. And I just to add on in the role of peace building in all these different settings and systems and structures is our indigenous approach and local approach, I mean traditional approach, is not really, it's maybe not set in stone, that we can sit in dialogue and with their willingness to engage, that they can also work with us to see that there may be gaps, and we can look at it together from the other Western approach and the diverse knowledge that we can all gain from, and see what we can improve or what we cannot. For example, in Fiji, in the context of climate change, we are at different levels. There are some who are willing to, they are more open to that, to the change, and there are some communities that in their cultural traditional protocols and their lineage of chiefly lineage and the Vanua, the climate change is not shifting them. They're remaining. They're actually claiming their land that's being lost. They want to reclaim it. The land that's being lost in the sea, and it's difficult for them to shift, and we respect that, and we try to continue to work with them. So yeah, I just want to mention all these different dimensions and of maybe it's not conflict, but of situations that we are in, and we try to work together consultatively.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank you. Kia
so
ora.
much. And Paula, you had a question as well?
Thank you very much for your presentation, Leo and Adivasu. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you so much. My name is Paula. I identify as non-Indigenous, and I work with intercultural studies. My main scholarly interest is in cultural identities in the interpersonal and collective levels. And I also embed Indigenous perspectives and knowledge in the curriculum in consultation with our office here. In terms of methodology, as Leo pointed out. I was wondering, from your perspective, Adi, what does consent look like in practice? How is it understood? How is it communicated? And how is it negotiated? And who gives that? Is it on an individual level? Is it family, the community? And one of the things I heard a lot from Leo saying, like, we need to make sure everything is understood. And I wonder, how do you make sure that something was really understood? Who says it's okay? Anyway, I don't know if it's too convoluted, but please let me know. Thank you so much. Adi, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yes, that's a good question. But then I'll respond to it from the context that we have been working in. And I think it's not a one-off meeting or in terms of consent. For example, if I use the case of, we first of all, when Leo asked me, can we go into the blue carbon, the Pacific blue carbon, and sampling from Tawake? And I said to him, I cannot say yes right now, or next week or next month. I need to go back and forth, and then we will confirm together. Once they confirm, we will go and do the Sevu. Sevu is the community entry. In the Sevu, that's when I had request that Leo talk about this thing, talk about it ready to the chiefs where we are doing the Sevu, because they're the ones that needs to be very clear about it. Once they understood, they asked their questions. We did our Sevu, and then Leo said they want to go out to the sea and check out the ground where they were looking at from the Google. So all of this protocol is done, and then the chief did not say, I consent to the work for the work to be done right away. So he asked for us to come to the main hall now, where all the main people will be present, and gave us the time to come. So then we went then later at 7 o'clock in the night, and they were all seated there waiting. So then we have to do a whole lot of presentations about what it entails, and some of the questions they ask is, are you going to take soil? Are you going to take things from here and take it? So those to and fro, and once they get exactly what it is you're here for, then they give consent. First of all, just a narrative consent. They say it in using the presentations and the protocols when they receive you. And then later on, technically for us from our workshop, we did a workshop. In the workshop, then we get the consent papers to be signed. So the consent paper is like a few steps down the line. We need to build the trust first, and then they will get to sign on the paper once. Then also you will see in the participation, a lot of them will be in the room. The more the participation is the positive sign. And even though they're not talking much, but they are present, because sometimes it's a language barrier. But then the final thing is signing of the consent paper.
Thank you. But everyone signs, or there is a representative of each community signing for those specific groups?
Normally for us, it's more than 50%.
Okay.
More than 50% should sign a paper from any particular village, or because in a village we have clans, and those clans have numbers. So they will see that For example, we ended up, we finished off closure, we wrote a booklet. And that booklet, we still haven't taken it back to present it the final time. We have presented it and they've corrected some language, which is an important process before they approve it. And then we, with Leo and the team, with their help, we structured the book that their chief also have a word in the booklet to claim that this will be theirs, and we will print it out and take it back to them once all of this is finalized.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just like to add like a brief comment, like the main issue was for the community to understand what low carbon was.
Leo, sorry, I just wonder if we could just also let people know that formally the session is 1 hour, and if anybody needs to leave, they can just they're welcome to leave. But we also have another half an hour of informal conversation, so we can continue talking. But I think just to formally close the formal part and to stop the recording, I just would like to also thank both speakers. And I think what you're talking about are just principles of good research with people more generally as well. So I think this idea of asking the question, what are the benefits for the community, that ongoing negotiation of consent, it's not something that you just sign, but actually it's a dialogic process. It's the care taken to think about the material knowledge, information. And I think, Devasu, specifically what you said about the value of building those relationships, how you actually can create better knowledge and you get more access to different kinds of things as well. So I think all of these lessons are just so useful in any context for anyone doing any kind of research and academic work. So thank you so much for sharing those. But for now, I'll just stop the recording and perhaps we just continue with what Leo wanted to say in response to what has been shared about the consent.